And the womanizer basically doesn't need to stay with one woman for a long time, you know. And I think in our day and age, most people are familiar with how the womanizers operate.
Okay.
So they don't stay with one for a long time.
Yeah. So you can expound on all of these. It can be a lecture on its own.
Absolutely.
Because we're almost out of time, tell us, because we have a few more that we have to knock out.
Yes.
So this is, and I'm sure anyone who's sincere, who has an open mind, humble heart, he can be like, you know what, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So if you want to go ahead and wrap up on this one, and then we have a few more to cover.
Okay, suppose he wanted power,
Yeah.
right? If he wanted power, he'd be demanding power constantly, right?
Yeah.
And he would be elevating himself in status in this religion and saying, you know, like I'm flawless, I don't make mistakes, you need to obey everything that I say. But when you look at the message of the Quran, it actually puts him in a very human depiction, you know, that he is human, that he makes mistakes, that he will die just like everyone else dies. The thing about power, suppose he wanted power, it's interesting how one time a Bedouin Arab, so like a nomadic Arab, came and he doesn't know what the Prophet looks like, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He hasn't seen photographs, there's no internet, magazines. So he comes into the mosque of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he has to ask this question. He has to say, which of you is Muhammad? Which is amazing. That means the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions, dressed in a way like all of them were dressed, not dressed better or differently, not sitting on a throne or sitting higher than they are. And it means he was so humble and so simple that he looked just like anyone else. So he had to ask, which of you is the Prophet?
Not like some men, I mean, who are just constantly thriving for attention.
Now, when you go somewhere, just the architecture of the room will tell you who the big shot is, right?
Yes,
You can't ever walk into a king's court and ask the jester, Your Highness, it's clear who the king is. The big chair, the big cloak, the big hat, whatever it is.
Amazing.
So this is proof that he's not someone who wanted power. Even one time someone tells him, whatever Allah wills and you will. And he became angered. He said, have you made me like an equal to Allah? Say whatever Allah wills. Someone who wanted power would say yes, absolutely. You know, interestingly, when the infant son of the Prophet ﷺ passed away, it coincided with an eclipse. And when the eclipse of the sun. So when the sun eclipsed, at the moment the infant of the Prophet ﷺ died, the people start to say, you see, the sun is sad at the death of the son of the Prophet ﷺ. That son. So he actually, now an imposter would take advantage of this
opportunity right there.
Absolutely, yes.
That's it.
And you should all be sad and give me some money while you're at
it.
What did he do? He says, no, these are like creations of Allah, the sun and the moon, and they don't, you know, eclipse or anything because of the death or the life of anybody.
So he shied away from it. He set things straight.
So you can see it's not someone who wanted power.
So we're out, no power.
No power. It's not. If he wanted to become famous, then you look at the Quran, because the book, the Quran, would have to be written by him. So if he wanted if there was a motive, it would be reflected in his writing, right? So he would say, you know, he would elevate himself in rank. He would say, bring women to the Prophet, because that's his motive. If he wanted wealth, he would write, bring wealth to the Prophet. God commands you to bring him wealth. If he wanted power, he would say, obey everything that he does blindly, you know, and so on and so forth. If he wanted a fame, he would just constantly talk about himself. But interestingly, and we're running out of time, I know, Eddie, but you know, and you know this, that the name of Moses is mentioned far more than the name of Muhammad ﷺ in the Quran. The name of Jesus is mentioned more than the name of Muhammad ﷺ. So if he wanted to be famous, why is he writing about other people in his book? It's all about me, the book. So every way you look at his life, it doesn't fit the mold of someone who's an imposter, pretending to be a prophet to get some kind of worldly gain. I would like to urge people to do their own research, because everything about his life is available online, it's available on the internet, in books, so you can find, and you look at it carefully. Does this look like the act of an imposter? And you'll come to the clear conclusion that it's not, inshallah.
Thank you very much for being with us again. We look forward to having you back here on the Deen Show, God willing.
Inshallah.
And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Deen Show. We hope that you got to hear some of the proofs and evidences, and anybody who comes at this with an open heart and open mind, and you're already seeking the truth within your very self, you're seeking to want to know what the purpose of life is, why you're here, and you're wanting the guidance. Because if you're not in the market, then you know what? It's not going to fit. It's not going to work. But if you are, you can see that the things that we're talking about, not only in this show, in all our other shows, are things that go with the good old common sense. And that's all we're asking you to do, to be sincere, to ask the one who created you for the guidance, and to come back here every week for another episode of The Deen Show. Don't forget to visit our blog section at thedeenshow.com, where we also have now Volume 2 of the DVDs for Dawah, along with the podcast and the audio versions of our shows. And until next time, we'll see you, God willing, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.